Opening. Details just ahead.
Plus, back and forth. Another appeal to stop the state's voter ID law was just filed. A day after one judge said it was good to go. We're now hearing from Valley poll workers who are trying to keep up.
Blue skies valley-wide today, a nice day, 83 degrees. Another nice day tomorrow, then the changes start. We'll check your first 4-5 forecast.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Oscar O'Donnell.
And I'm Melissa Correa. Channel 5 News at 5 starts now.
From the Valley's News Channel, this is Channel 5 News at 5.
Well, right before news time, President Obama addressed the American public about the Ebola outbreak.
Yeah, President referenced our state's 2 Ebola cases. President Obama says if another case happens, a response team will be sent in 24 hours to that hospital. The president will be working with Texas Governor Rick Perry and the mayor of Dallas. All of this breaking within the last 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, the hospital is one of the 4 in the country who specialize in isolation units to care for Ebola. And that is Emory Hospital in Atlanta. You might remember that was the same hospital that treated Dr. Kent Brantley and also the missionary Nancy Wright, both who had the virus. They recovered. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says all 4 hospitals in the country have been asked about whether they can accept more Ebola patients should the need arise. And fears about the Ebola outbreak across the country growing, at least at this point.
Yeah, the second nurse to be diagnosed with Ebola, Amber Vinson, was on a passenger on board a flight, Frontier Airlines flight 1143 on Monday. The CDC reporting today that she already had a low-grade fever then when she boarded the flight. She showed up to the hospital the next day, Tuesday, with symptoms. Vinson tested positive for Ebola last night.
Yeah, Vinson flew again from Cleveland to Dallas. The plane, we're told, was cleaned before returning to service the next day.
Frontier Airlines says the cleaning was consistent with CDC guidelines. Reading in some reports today, Oscar, that the plane was actually decontaminated twice. The airline says health officials are contacting all 132 passengers that were on board that Frontier Airline flight with Vinson.
And if you know of someone who might have traveled on flight 1143, or you might have traveled on that flight itself, you're asked to contact the CDC. They're taking some precautionary measures right now with regards to that flight. That number is 1-800-CDC-INFO. And the National Nurses Union says nurses at Dallas Health Presbyterian Hospital were not prepared to deal with Ebola.
To the public, to the CDC, whatever, they say, we are all prepared, don't worry. And the nurses are saying, no, we are not. We ask for the plan. They either don't have one. They direct us to a website and say, here are the CDC guidelines.
Yeah, right now, a lot of work being done to see what kind of protocols were followed at that hospital. The union says hospital workers told them Duncan was not immediately isolated and protective gear still left the hands and also necks of some nurses exposed. A Texas Health Presbyterian spokesman has not responded to the allegations. Well, breaking developments, the Whole Women's Health Clinic will soon reopen. The McAllen Abortion Clinic just made the announcement during a conference call. The CEO says services will resume. Last night on Channel 5 News at 10:30, we told you how a Supreme Court ruling allowed 13 clinics to reopen in Texas while the legal process involving the state's abortion law plays out. The clinics, including one in McAllen, closed because state law required abortion clinics to make hospital-level upgrades. Well, new developments in a recent announcement from Ignite Public Schools. The charter school says the Texas Education Agency will pull their charter in June of 2015.
Yeah, Channel 5 News spoke with Ignite CEO and superintendent. He says the TEA made the decision to revoke the charter during a recent conference call.
We also talked with the TEA this afternoon. They said they have not made any decision to pull Ignite's charter. They say Ignite is on probation for their financial accountability ratings.
TEA says it needs to review Ignite's academic ratings before it can make a decision about the charter. We're told those academic scores will not be available until next month.
emergency appeal was filed today to stop the reinstatement of Texas's voter ID law. You might remember yesterday a federal appeals court reversed a judge's recent ruling on the law.
Minority rights groups are telling the U.S. Supreme Court that keeping voter ID requirements in place is going to lead to a lot of confusion. An appeals court in Corpus Christi ruled the law unconstitutional last week.
The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, who reinstated the law, says it's too close to the election to change the rules. And then right before news time, we found Justice Anton Scalia has asked Texas for a response to the emergency stay. Early voting begins Monday. Election day is November 4th. And the Hidalgo County Elections Office is alerting its election workers to operate under the voter ID law for the upcoming November general election.
Elections Administrator Ivan Ramon says workers were trained to operate the polls with and without voter ID restrictions.
Our judges are ready to go with the training on voter ID or training without voter ID. So now that there has been the district courts went ahead and said voter ID will move on, we're ready to go.
Ramon says the past elections operated under the voter ID law. They did not have any lower than usual voter turnout. She says, in fact, more folks are going to the polls and a record number registered to vote this year. Because of the temporary reinstatement, you will need an ID in order to cast your ballot starting tomorrow, or starting Monday, rather.
Yeah, early voting starting on Monday again. You can that can either be a Texas driver's license, a personal ID card, or a U.S. passport.
A Texas concealed handgun license or a U.S. military ID with a photo can also be used. So can a U.S. citizenship certificate or a certificate of naturalization with a photo. If you don't have any of these, you can get an election ID certificate at any of the Texas driver's license offices. Within the last hour, we've learned a Guatemalan man was rescued by Border Patrol agents. He is now recovering. The man called 911 after he severely sprained his ankle in Brooks County. The area was so remote, agents had to drive on sandy ranch roads for an hour and then hike 30 minutes through thick brush. The man was carried back to the vehicle on a stretcher. You know, the surge of illegal immigrants down drastically along the border, though for the first time in a long time, the Border Patrol is taking applications. First, the feds will take 10,000 applications nationwide. The process continues. To hire a Border Patrol agent, it is long and tedious and can stretch past a year. It could take up to 3 years before the Valley actually sees any of these latest hires. We tracked down the Valley's Border Patrol chief to find out what this all means for us at home.
After we've taken a look at the operation and done a complete operational assessment and looked at how, what resources really the Valley requires in order to address any future situations that you may or may not have, the deputy and I, our request was, for quite a few hundred more agents to be able to put on the ground to be able to cover all the things that are going to happen.
An additional 200 agents are heading to the Valley this year. That's going to bring the total to about 3,200 agents by the end of September. Chief Kevin Oakes has asked for even more agents to roll out in 2015.
New at 5, this next story shows the cartel's reach into the U.S., a Mexican drug cartel. One member of the Sinaloa cartel facing 10 years to life in prison. Jury in New Hampshire convicted Rafael Humberto Zelaya Valenzuela today. He was working to expand the cocaine trafficking empire for the Sinaloa drug cartel. Prosecutors say he conspired to distribute more than 2,200 pounds of cocaine plus heroin and methamphetamine into the U.S. Valenzuela was arrested in 2012. His sentencing is set for January.
Across the valley today, it's been another warm day, but low humidity again, making it pretty comfortable out there. There are your currents. The dew point's down at 39, so the humidity only 20%. Wind is calm. Gorgeous afternoon. We're under the influence of high pressure right on top of us right now. Things aren't going to change much tomorrow, but by the end of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, things will begin to change. We'll talk about that with your First One 5 forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Texas officials want to fine a Valley Petroleum distribution company for environmental violations.
Kirk Chason has been digging into this story. He's live in our newsroom with more on what he found out. Kirk?
Well, the company's called Mission Petroleum Carriers. Their website says they transport gasoline, diesel fuels, and crude oil throughout Texas and other states. They ran into a problem at this location. It's listed as 7907 West Mile 7 Road in Mission. It's a little corner gas station. We dug into the records with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. They show that from April of 2012 to March of 2013, the company improperly deposited fuel into an underground storage system 45 times. The company did not have a valid delivery certificate for the facility. The total fine would come to $13,859. The company gets to pay the fine off in 35 monthly payments. An order signed by company president David Fontenot says the company will also establish training procedures for fuel delivery personnel. Fontenot has not returned our calls for comment. The State Environmental Commission has to finalize that order and the fine during their upcoming meeting on the 22nd of this month. Live in the newsroom, Kirk Chase on Channel 5 News at 5.
A Valley woman out of a major wad of cash. Why she says she was forced to pay for upgrades the landlord should have dished out.
Also, some bus passengers are attacked. What happened before police showed up and where it happened. Just ahead on Channel 5 News at 5.
Breaking news. Breaking stories. This is Channel 5 News with Oscar Adame, Melissa Correa, and First Warn 5 Weather with Chief Meteorologist Tim Smith. This is Channel 5 News at 5.
A woman is out $1,000 today. She says she needed a new electrical box for her mobile home.
Yeah, the landlord said he was going to replace it. Didn't happen. Channel 5's Michael Scott tells us, be sure you understand what you're agreeing to. Take a look.
Susan Garza wanted to be closer to her family. She moved her mobile home from a park in McAllen to one in Weslaco. It happened in June 2013. She says the electricity needed to be hooked up to her home. Garza claims the landlord didn't have the electricity ready.
I couldn't get the landlord to come out and see what was needed. And I kept going there every day, sleeping with my relatives. Finally, they put me up in an apartment here in the park. But the landlord, Danny, would not come out.
The problem is Garza needed a new electrical box upgrade. The landlord tells us that they were going to do it, but she just didn't wait. So she hired an outside electrical company, spent $1,000 for this new box.
I needed to move into my house. So I paid for the work myself.
We went to the landlord to get answers. Danny Halife tells us the leasing company is responsible for the electrical connections.
Prior to her moving in here, what she did is she went and hired an electrician on her own. And in doing so, we weren't notified that the electrical was done.
Now, Garza wants her $1,000 back. Halife says that's not going to happen.
No, our company, we do not reimburse. No, we don't pay, we don't give people cash.
He says the company doesn't write checks or give money orders. Halife says Garza probably misunderstood him. He says moving mobile homes can be complicated, and it's important to listen to the landlords. Michael Scott, Channel 5 News, Weslaco.
Sunshine gorgeous across the valley again today. Tomorrow looks pretty nice too. Then some changes. Your forecast for Falcon Heights, Monte Alto, Olmito, and the rest of the valley. Next.
And now, First Warn 5 weather with Chief Meteorologist Tim Smith.
Hey folks, had another delightful day across the valley. Your temperatures back up into the 80s in most places, a little warmer in the west, but all in all, really nice day across the area with low humidity, bright sunshine. WeatherBug, take a peek what it looks like outside right now from McAllen Medical Center where it's 84 degrees. Sky's about as blue as it can be. The wind is kind of variable right now, working its way from the northerly direction slowly but surely around to the southeast, and that'll bring the moisture back in. But in the meantime, gorgeous evening across the area. Let's jump back to the maps, and with your temperatures still in the 80s, dew points 30s, 40s, 50s in the lower valley. We'll kind of go to the middle of that range and say that it's just dry, dry, dry across the area. And your forecast lows tonight back into the 50s again. And this morning here in Weslaco, we were at 53, so even cooler than yesterday. Tomorrow we begin to warm up just a little bit. We'll start in the upper 50s. By afternoon, we'll be back in the upper 80s again. Rest of South Texas, 86 in San Antonio. Victoria's 87. Same thing, Laredo. Del Rio's 86. Over in Monterey, a little cooler, 79 there, a little bit higher up. Look to the north, temperatures in the 80s almost statewide. The exception now, Marfa at 79 degrees. Again, a little bit higher up. Take a look at the satellite radar. Pretty quiet. Not a cloud in the sky over the state of Texas. Very quiet day today. No fronts in the state, just lower humidity, and just a gorgeous day, pretty much wall to wall across Texas. A nice night tonight, then plenty of sunshine again tomorrow. Things not changing much tomorrow. We begin to see the subtle changes on Friday when the moisture begins to push back in. Start to see even more moisture on Saturday as tropical moisture comes up from the south and begins to trigger scattered showers and maybe even an embedded thunder shower. And I think the chance goes up even more on Sunday and stays with us most of next week. Not much rain chance tomorrow and Friday, but Saturday we jump to 20%. A lot more moisture as the day goes on Saturday. High temperatures staying close to normal, 88, 91, 87. That cooler reading on Saturday because of the tropical moisture. We do have a hurricane off the East Coast. It's going to stay out there. It may affect Bermuda. We'll watch that. So tonight, clear and cool, 55 for a low. And then tomorrow, we're back up to 88. Mainly sunny. Looks like a nice day. Southeasterly winds about 10 to 15. Notice as we head into the weekend, though, we bring the clouds back in Saturday. Spotty showers a possibility, and then spotty thunderstorms after that, all the way into the first part of next week. That's your updated First Warn 5 forecast.
A man with a knife stabs a passenger on a bus who was killed, and how the attacker was stopped on the way next.
This one in Connecticut.
ABC's Karen Travers shows how a person inside that bus, the attacker, stabbed 3 people before police showed up.
The bus was traveling from New York's Chinatown area to the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. At about 10 p.m., state police received several 911 calls from passengers on board saying there was a disturbance.
It was an aggressive situation where people were being physically harmed aboard that bus.
Before police could respond, the bus pulled over into a construction zone and flagged down a state trooper working there.
When he came up on the state police car, he knew that there was a trooper at that location. He pulled the bus over to get help.
As the state trooper approached the bus, the suspect and a passenger were engaged in a physical altercation and rolled off the bus right onto the highway pavement. The suspect was armed with what police called a cutting instrument. He refused the trooper's demands that he put down the weapon and then began advancing toward the officer. It was then that the trooper responded.
Fired on the suspect, striking the suspect. In addition, the trooper did in fact strike a witness with one of the rounds.
A round from the trooper's weapon deflected off the pavement and struck a witness who had been stabbed by the suspect on the bus. 2 others on board were also stabbed and are hospitalized.
The suspect later died from his injuries at a Connecticut hospital, but the cause of death is unclear. Police say the suspect was harming himself with the sharp weapon while on the bus. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
Yesterday, we told you about a bus being held up at gunpoint in Reynosa.
It was a Líneas Panamericanas bus. It was on its way through downtown Reynosa last Thursday when it was cut off by another vehicle. Company officials say a man got out of that vehicle and then flashed a weapon.
You know, then he told the bus driver to open up the door, and when he did, the gunman walked right in and robbed 20 passengers. No one was hurt. A company spokesperson tells Channel 5 News they plan to implement safety precautions in an effort to protect passengers. Right now, bus drivers are instructed to stop and comply with the demands of the people threatening to rob them.
Blue skies across the valley today. Look at WeatherBug, this time in far Lone Star National Bank. Looking down at the interchange, traffic moving well through the interchange, 84 degrees there, bright sunshine. We'll check that forecast that is changing as we head toward the weekend when we come back.
Office is open again, but is it business as usual? Details coming up at 6.
And copper thieves did an estimated $40,000 to $45,000 worth of damage. Today, 4 men were arrested. The sheriff tells us there could be more crimes.
A lot of sunshine again tomorrow. As we head into the weekend, clouds begin to increase. We could even see a couple of showers on Saturday, a better chance then Sunday through Wednesday. That holds temperatures down just a little bit, mainly in the 80s after Friday. But again, tomorrow, another beautiful day. A lot like today, kind of a cool night out there tonight. We'll update that forecast for you at 6 o'clock.
I was the woman who pulled out her boots because of the cool temperatures this morning. Now I'm sweating in them.
That's the way it is. Valley
really
winters, nice and cool in the morning. Let's bundle up, and afternoon is t-shirt weather again.
Yep, that's the way it goes. That's why I always wear flip-flops on Christmas Day.
There you go.
Thank you so much for sticking with us today.
Have yourself a great evening. Bye-bye.